Hi, I'm Rob Shepley, Director at Business Depot Legal. What I wanted to talk to you about today is business succession. In particular, what happens if you're in business partnership with someone and they get hit by a bus. So two outcomes: either the person gets hit by the bus and dies, which is bad, or they get hit by the bus and don't die but they can't come back to work, which is bad too. So the way this would normally work, the default position is that if the business partner dies, for example, and in the same example, it's a 50-50 ownership business, that person can't come to work anymore and contribute, but the ownership remains the same. So the outcome is that you've got now one business partner who's contributing to the business, but still the bottom line's been split 50-50, so not really ideal. Same situation as well if we're talking about the person becoming disabled or if they have some other terrible illness. The reality is if they can't come in and contribute to the business, then we have a problem here. So if you have a shareholders agreement or partnership agreement, depending on what your structure is, it might have a mechanism in there to say that, look, if this happens, then the continuing partner has an option to buy out the person who's suffered the event. Now that kind of works, but it has two practical problems. The first one is being able to finance that buyout. So the nature of these events are that it's entirely unpredictable, and so it's not something you can necessarily plan for in that respect. And also there's a timing issue in terms of a continuing partner might be pretty keen to buy the other partner out. At the same time, the estate's probably pretty keen as well, but whether they've got the actual ability to actually finance that at that time can be tricky. The second really important issue that can happen is around valuation. So you might have had a reasonable idea of what the business was worth in the ordinary course when the two partners were in there and working. All of a sudden, if one contributing partner is now gone, then certainly the continuing partner probably has a different view, a more pessimistic view of what the value is moving forward. And the estate of the person who has died, probably also still wants to maintain the existing value. So it's very easy to have disputes with that. And you've got to remember as well is that in that situation, basically the default position is that all of a sudden you're in business with the spouse of your business partner. So really not ideal. So depending on the circumstances, that spouse may not have the skills or experience or even want to be in the business with you. So it really is quite a significant problem. So there is actually a pretty simple solution that you can put in place to deal with this, someone being hit by the bus example. You can't stop the bus happening, but you can deal with it in a way that gives certainty to both sides. So that's called a insurance-funded buy-sell arrangement. So the way it works is each owner in the business takes out a life insurance policy, maybe also a TPD, which is total permanent disablement policy, maybe critical illness as well, depending on what sort of particular events we want to cover. So each person takes out a policy for a value that is broadly reflective of what they think the agreed value for their ownership interest in the business. So the business generally pays for that policy, and then what happens is that in the event one of those events occur, then in the example of a partner dying, then their estate claims under the insurance policy, they get paid under the policy, and then they're required to transfer their equity in the business to the continuing partner. So the end outcome is the continuing partner now owns 100% of the business. The deceased partner's estate has been paid a fair value for what the business is worth, and it's done in a way where you didn't need to worry about getting finance or anything like that, and it can make that process really smooth. So that is a really good outcome, and it's really important in my view for businesses that are closely held. So if you've got 2, 3 or 4 partners, really important. Also, if you've got ownership interests that are disproportionate, so if you've got a 80% shareholder and a 20% shareholder, then if the 80% person is someone who dies or becomes disabled, then that's a really big problem for the 20% person. But the same situation is that it can certainly apply in more widely held companies as well. It's just a way of trying to create a process and certainty for if something like this occurs. So the sort of costs in terms of ongoing as to how this works. So obviously there are insurance policies that need to be taken out. So that'll vary depending on how much you're trying to take out insurance and your own individual circumstances. And you need to get a lawyer to help you do a buy-sell agreement, but it's really not a complicated exercise. If this is something that you're worried about, or if you'd like to discuss more, please feel free to get in touch with us at Business Depot Legal.